What are indirect cost rates in federal grant programs? Imagine trying to run a business and cover all the expenses that keep it going, like rent, utilities, and administrative support. Now, think about how you can get help paying for those costs when you receive a federal grant. That's where indirect cost rates come into play. They are a way to figure out how much of your overhead expenses you can recover through federal funding. Indirect costs are expenses that are necessary for running your organization but aren't tied to a specific project. For example, paying for your office rent, electricity, or administrative staff. When you apply for a federal grant, you usually have to tell the government how much of these costs you expect to incur. The indirect cost rate is a percentage that helps you allocate a fair share of these expenses to your grant. There are different types of indirect cost rates. The provisional rate is temporary and used until you get a final rate based on actual costs. The final rate is set after an audit of your previous expenses and doesn't change. The predetermined rate is fixed for a certain period based on estimates, and it usually can't be changed once set. The fixed rate with carry forward is a rate that stays the same for a period, but if you spend more or less than expected, the difference is carried over to the next period. To get an indirect cost rate, your organization must negotiate with a federal agency that oversees your grants. You will need to submit detailed documents like financial statements, organizational charts, and a plan showing how you allocate costs. Once approved, the rate applies to all your federal grants, helping you recover your overhead expenses consistently. For minority-owned businesses in America, understanding and negotiating this rate is key. It allows you to recover a fair part of your indirect costs, making your projects more financially sustainable. If your organization has less than $35 million in federal funding each year and hasn't negotiated a rate before, you might qualify for a simple de minimis rate of 10% of your modified total direct costs. This means you can use this flat rate without going through a formal negotiation process. Getting your indirect cost rate right can help you plan your budgets better and compete more effectively for federal grants. Preparing your documentation carefully, including audited financial statements and a clear cost plan, is essential. Once you have your rate, it can support your growth and help you manage multiple federal projects smoothly. In short, indirect cost rates are a helpful tool for recovering overhead expenses when managing federal grants. Knowing how they work, the different types, and your eligibility for simplified rates can make accessing federal funding easier and more beneficial for your business.